can see my 3D model of a hand truck, which is made up of a frame, an axle, spacers, tires, wheel hubs, washers, and a push nut cap I got from McMaster Car. First, I'll show you how I made the main frame. I first started the model by creating a 3D sketch of the main body frame and went back to fully define it using construction lines. I'll be redrawing this sketch to show you how I did it and tricks I used when drawing the 3D sketch. First, notice that when you start a 3D sketch, it gives you 2 letters showing you what axis you're on. You can easily change this by using the Tab key or moving your mouse direction until it detects the change. First, I want to draw a line through the origin to constrain my sketch location and make it a midpoint. Then I'll draw the frame, making sure the lines are along the X and Y axes. I'll make this line a construction line that we'll use later in the model. Now with dimensions, it's fully defined. Now to create the middle bars of the sketch. It can be difficult to draw 3D sketches that are angled, so I will make planes within the sketch. To do this, I'll go to Tools, Sketch Entities, and select Plane. I'll choose the top plane as a reference and make my plane 6 inches from it. Now if I click on this plane, it will highlight as a grid, showing that I'm now sketching on the plane. Here I'll draw the middle bar profile. I'll draw 2 construction lines, one through the sidebars and one right in the middle. This will constrain the profile in the X and Z direction and also make it symmetric about the middle construction line. After dimensioning, it's now fully defined. See here, if I delete a construction line, the sketches can move freely. To fully define a 3D sketch, you must ensure that it's constrained in all 3 dimensions, versus a regular sketch which must only be constrained in 2 dimensions. Since 3D sketches can be drawn freely in space, construction lines can be used to give the sketch some structure. Now I will repeat the same for the rest of the bars. The last part I need to create is the top handle part. You could create an angled plane here, but I'll be showing you how you could do it without a plane. Now I'll draw the general shape of the handle, being careful how I'm drawing it and making it as close as possible to how I want it to actually look later on. Using this construction line from earlier, I will draw a midpoint construction line along the Z-axis and another one from that end along the Y-axis. I'll merge the midpoint of the top of the handlebar, creating a triangle profile. I can use these construction lines as a reference for dimensioning and will allow me to fully define the sketch. Exiting the sketch, I want to create my weldment, but first I'm going to create my own weldment profile in a new part file. You can start the sketch on any plane and simply fully define how you would want your weldment profile to look like. I'm going to make a hollow rectangle. To save it in the SolidWorks library, I'm first going to find the weldment profile location. I'll go to Options, File Locations, and find where the weldment profiles are located. So now I will save my part in that folder, but I will create my own custom folder so that it's easier to find later. Here I'm saving it as a SolidWorks library part file. Now, going back to my 3D sketch, I will select on weldment profiles and do the larger frame first, selecting SolidWorks default 1-inch pipe profile from the ANSI inch standards folder. I will now select the outer frame as one group. Now that I have the outer frame, I'll begin the middle bars by creating another weldment feature and selecting my custom profile that I made. Here, since they're all not one continuous line, I'll have to select each bar in a new group. Now I've completed my weldment portion of the hand truck. I made the base using a boss extrude, but notice here that some of the weldment sticks out. I then used a weldment trim to cut to this face. Now I'll go back to the completed frame and roll back on the feature tree to show you how I did the sides. First, I made a plane in the middle of the weldment pole using the 3D sketch as reference. I then drew a sketch making sure it would intersect my weldment profile and did a boss extrude. Here I don't want to select Merge Result because I want to be able to mirror this feature later on. To create the part that wraps around, I created two planes using one as a reference for the other. This plane is where I drew my sweep profile. Then I drew a sketch on the first plane I made, offsetting the boss extrude to use as my sweep profile. I then continued to draw the sweep path and swept the sketch profile and path. I then mirrored these two features about the right plane and used the Combine tool to make it all one body. Now you've seen how to make a hand truck. See if you can create your own weldment.